Welcome to the Messy Men Podcast, a podcast where two men, John and Kevin, talk about and share their stories about being men, husbands, fathers, and friends, while striving, and I emphasize striving, to be the men God has called them to be. A show where John and Kevin have real, transparent conversations about the importance of being men in community. When burdens are shared, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens the other, all while encouraging and building up one another. Wait, this sounds heavy. Not like the kind of real man talk I'm used to, like sports, grilling meat, and sports. Will they talk about sports on the show? Can't they sharpen knives or swords? Maybe an axe instead of, like, one another? No? Well, okay, what do I care? They promised to pay me well for this. Very manly announcement, if I don't say so myself. So, here to share their burdens unashamedly and sometimes awkwardly are the messy men themselves, John and Kevin.
The first one I did.
This is an experiment. I don't even know if this will make it to Should we do something official? Like an official opening?
No, and that's what we got. Chips.
The audience doesn't know about Chip.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
you probably shouldn't even mention his name.
Maybe that'll. So,
although Chip is a nickname, so
yeah, we're working on an official. We're trying to go pro here, folks. Professional.
Yeah.
Intro music, the whole thing. We've got a band that we're hiring. Professional announcer.
It was U2, right? That small little band out of Ireland.
Yeah, sure.
They were going to do our intro.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we could do that.
I mean, I reached out to Bono, but I haven't heard back yet. But I assume he's busy.
Do you remember when Ben Stiller had that comedy show on Fox back in the day when Fox first started? It was like a half-hour comedy show. It was like little comedy skits, like kind of like a Saturday Night Live thing. And you don't remember this? And they had little 5-minute videos or whatever, and they did one. And it was right at the time U2 had just released, like, Achtung Baby. Okay. And they did this parody of U2. And they took the song One, and they changed the words to it. And it was basically, he was singing about Lucky Charms cereal. It was like, one bowl, kind of thing. And it was hilarious. So there was, like, this documentary on U2, and Ben Stiller was playing Bono. And it showed them playing a bar mitzvah and it was hilarious. So
awesome.
He's playing. They're playing "Bullet the Blue Sky." Okay, and they changed the words. And if you ever saw U2 live in concert when they do "Bullet the Blue Sky," Bono would take the spotlight and spot into the audience. Mm-hmm. So at the bar mitzvah, they've got the little boy on stage, and Bono's got a spotlight, and he's walking around the kid while they're singing this like deep political song like "Bullet the Blue Sky."
Right. That's awesome.
So yeah, U2 playing bar mitzvahs. Anyway,
yeah. Well,
that was fun.
Ben Stiller playing U2 playing.
Yes, Ben Stiller playing, and that's when his career was just getting started, and nobody really knew. That's how he got his name out there.
Right.
That was kind of fun. So look that up. It was
I will.
I don't know if it was the Ben Stiller show or what it was called.
Well, it's got to be on YouTube, right?
Probably.
You would assume.
Yeah, I'll show it to you later.
Yeah.
So what's been going on with you this week?
Oh, not much. You.
You can do better than that.
I can do better than that. This week, well, actually, it's been a lot of doing stuff around the house. We had the light in our dining room died. It was a 10-year-old IKEA fixture, and I think the transformer just died because my son turned it on, and we heard this small little pop, and the lights didn't come on. So we got a new fixture, had to move wiring up and down in the attic yesterday, all that fun stuff, and got it set, but I've only got it temporarily wired in because I don't know. It's a hanging fixture where the old one was up mounted to the ceiling. And my wife didn't come home early yesterday because she went out shopping with her mom and sister. Mm-hmm. So I never got, final approval, but I think it's too low. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I think it's too low.
You took a leadership position.
Oh, no. I am just
we got to talk about that.
I am just labor.
You're just labor?
I am labor, yeah. So I think it's too low. I talked about it with my sons, and one thinks maybe it's all right because it hangs lower. but it's like head height.
Yeah.
It'll always be over the table, so you're not going to bump your head, but I don't know.
So this is great because I love, like, you know, being a do-it-yourselfer.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a do-it-yourselfer at your home?
Yeah, 100%.
See, and here's where I admit my weakness.
Yeah.
I tend to make things worse.
Yeah.
Than they when I'm trying to fix something around the house. Like something. It depends what it is. Like I'm good at. I can install a ceiling fan or a light or something like that.
Right.
But I've talked to other guys, and this seems to be a common thing. Like I can't just make one trip. Like if I have a project at the home.
Yeah.
I can't just make one trip to Home Depot and get everything I need.
Oh yeah.
Usually in my mind I think, okay, this will take me an hour. It'll be easy fix. I'll run to Home Depot, get what I need, come home, done.
Right.
5 hours later, I'm already done 20 trips to Home Depot,
right.
And somehow it turns into this big mess. And then I'm thinking at the end of the day, I should just pay someone to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you are the kind of guy that as someone who's done like handyman type work loves, because you go in and fuss it up, and I get to charge you even more money to fix what you messed up and then fix the original problem. Last
year at this time, or probably was January, I had to recaulk our master shower, and if I showed you, I wouldn't. I'd be embarrassed to show you right now. But it was like I was so disappointed in myself for days afterwards, and now I'm looking at it going, I got to fix that because I know I could do a better job.
Sure,
but man, caulking is hard.
It is. I mean,
this is the home improvement episode of Messy Men, folks.
Sponsored by Home Depot and Lowe's.
But yeah, but I so where I wanted to go, just as you were telling me this story, I love too that you get your boys involved and you're teaching them. And I'm gonna say my dad was a do-it-yourself. My dad built cabinets. He did all kinds of stuff. I guess I just never had it in me to really learn that stuff.
Yeah, and
I kind of wish I did.
Yeah.
I didn't become really handy with could I build? Right now, I want to put some crown moldings in our house. I'm sure it's not that difficult if I just take the time to learn how to do it. Then versus,
I would start with floor moldings because crown moldings are a little bit tricky. Only because the corners on a traditional crown molding kind of suck intuitively because the way you're cutting the angle on the miter saw is really kind of backwards than what you would expect.
Yeah.
But no, I've always kind of been this way. My dad was the same way. He would, kind of include me and stuff. I remember helping him change the brakes on a car or something like that.
I've never done that.
But a lot of it is also I enjoy doing it, so I've kind of always done it.
Yeah.
So when I went back to college, I was doing it full time to get this counseling degree. So I didn't have a full-time job because you've heard my story in episode 1. I was laid off, so while I was doing school full-time, I was doing handyman work.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Through the website, through app, but also through just word of mouth. And I was thinking about it when I was doing this, and on a house, all the things that takes to build a house, the only thing I've never done is carpeting, never installed carpeting, and the HVAC system, so heating, cooling. Pretty much everything else on a house I've done at some level or another, from replacing roofs. My buddy and I, one summer during college 1.0, a good friend of mine and I did a couple roofs by ourselves just to make some extra money. All the way through to hanging drywall, to building 2x4 walls, to electrical, plumbing. I've pretty much done everything.
So would you consider yourself kind of a carpenter?
No, because I'm a hack at it. I'm not a hack, but to be a carpenter, it really is a skilled trade. So there's a skill involved.
Yeah,
I don't have that skill.
Yeah.
So there's an art form involved.
Who's a carpenter?
Who's that? Come on.
Jesus.
You got... Oh, there it is.
We had to get Jesus in this
I had to take the hook.
Anyway, so continue.
Things there's things that I won't do, like drywall.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't mind hanging it, but mudding the drywall, that's one of those things that I've realized over the year I can do, but the people who are good at it are so good and exponentially faster. Like when we refinished our basement, finished our basement, I hung all the drywall. I put up all the studs in the wall and put up the insulation and hung the drywall.
Yeah.
And then we paid a guy to come in and mud it. And he did in over 2 days, I think I probably hung 30 sheets of drywall. So there's a lot of drywall in our basement. Over 2 days, maybe 6 hours top, between 2 days, he first coat, sanded, second coat the whole thing. And that would have taken me weeks.
Yeah.
Because there truly is an art to that.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that I won't do because it makes more sense to hire someone.
Yeah.
Painting is another thing. I hate painting. Painting is just the bane of my existence. There's nothing that's more painful for me than painting.
I don't mind the actual painting part. I can do that. It's the prep that I hate.
But that's another thing that's like a skill. We had some painting done on our house this summer, but you see the guys come over and mask everything off and stuff like that, and they're so quick.
Yeah. Takes me a day.
Oh, easily.
To do a 10 by 10 room.
Right. Oh, yeah, easily. No, but yeah, so like painting is another thing that if I have to do it, if it needs to be done, I'd rather hire it out.
Yeah.
Although my wife likes to paint, so usually she does it. It's a funny story, though, real quick.
Yeah, no, hit me.
About my wife and painting. I don't know if I ever told you the story. So when we lived in our old house down in Ferndale, pregnant with our first child. She's got to be at this point like 13 months pregnant. I mean, she's pregnant. I walk in the door, and she's up on the top step of a step stool on her tippy toes, painting the top of a room. I'm like, what in the hell are you doing? She goes, this is very much like nesting kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I say, she's really pregnant. She's like, this room had to be painted before I had the baby. I couldn't see anymore. I went out and bought the stuff, and she said, well, I bought the good paint without any fumes. You can get paint with, they call them VOCs, but it's basically the fumes that come out that are dangerous to pregnant women. So if she paid for the paint that was good, I said, I'm not worried about the fumes. I'm worried about you on your tippy toes on the top rung.
Yeah.
She's, but I know you hate painting. I'm like, well, I also hate my pregnant wife falling off a ladder.
Yeah.
Probably more than I hate painting, so.
Were you mansplaining to her?
No. I was trying to come up with a smart-ass answer to that. I got nothing. So, yeah, it probably was. No, but that was, that's the time we've all experienced it. Sure. That's the time of the pregnancy that, they're certifiably insane times.
Yes.
And they can't help it.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah.
But, it's such a good thing that women are the ones that have to carry the babies, because I know for a fact, if I had to do it, we'd only have one. If men had to carry babies, honestly, our species would have died out a long time ago, because we can't. The pain and the... Pain, no, I knew.
No. There's so many things I could think about there. No, I want to go back to, I was thinking about... I don't know where I'm going with this, but just these skill sets. It is interesting because I think I've heard this a couple times recently, that these trade skills, there's becoming lesser and lesser people going into those trades, which is there's going to be a demand.
Oh yeah,
for electricians and all these what do you call them? Would they be called vocational skills or
skilled trades?
Skilled trades, yeah, skilled trades.
Skilled trades.
It was amazing. Last year, a year ago, October, we went down to, what's the name of that? It's not Habitat for Humanity. What's the organization in Detroit, and they're helping rebuild that school in downtown Detroit?
Life Remodeled.
Yes, Life Remodeled.
Yeah.
And they are helping rebuild, I think it was a high school. Maybe it was a middle school. Do you know?
High school. They always pick one high school in the city every summer, refurb the high school, refurb the grounds around the high school, and then refurb the neighborhood around the high school.
Man, so we had a day where we were down there, serving to help, do one of the rooms there, and dude, I was marveling at some of the architecture in that building.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the marble work and the stairwells going upstairs and stuff like that. And I thought,
but it was something as simple as a high school, right?
Yes. I don't know that could be duplicated today.
Oh, it couldn't be. It could be, but not at the cost.
Not at the cost, yeah. No. But I was just looking, just the marble work on the hand railing, going upstairs, and it was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you wouldn't see that be done today.
Oh, yeah.
And to your point, like, what would it cost to build that high school today? They wouldn't do it.
No. Well, I heard a talk probably about 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
So one of the deputy superintendents for our county that we live in Oakland County, he was given a talk about, this is when I was working on finishing my undergrad. So he was going to talk about, we need you guys to stay in school and graduate because there's so much work out there. But then he broke off and went on this, went down this 5-10 minute rabbit hole just talking about the fact, but if for whatever reason you decide college isn't for you, I'm begging you. And he actually, kind of like folded his hands like, please consider going into the skilled trades.
Yeah.
And then he talked about the skilled trades. He goes, for example, here in Oakland County, again, this was 4 years ago, he goes, the average age of a master plumber, and if I remember correctly, it was like 54, 55 years old. He goes, these guys are going to retire, and they're dying off, and if we're not replacing them in 10 years, it's going to cost you $1,000 to put in a toilet because nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been very clear with our two sons, especially because they're a bit older, like, hey, if college isn't for you, we are not going to push you to college, but we will push you to a skilled trade because, I mean, skilled trades. So after high school, the way the skilled trades work in general, you become a journeyman. Like, say you're going to be a journeyman electrician. You go through a journeyman school.
Okay.
It takes about 4 years. During that, so similar to a college program, but during that time, most importantly, you're getting paid. So you're getting paid journeyman wages, which, aren't super great, but they're better than working at a McDonald's or waiting tables.
Yeah.
So you get paid for 4 years. I'm sorry, the apprentice school. Then after those 4 years, you're a journeyman, and journeyman electricians in the union around this area, I mean, they're starting at 60, 70, 80 grand a year. Now, that includes overtime, of course, but, man, there aren't a lot of 4-year degrees anywhere that you get that start.
And you have the potential to go start your own business. And I wonder, and I'm sure there's stats to this. This is going off of John making this up stuff, so I just want to qualify.
I like John's statistics.
I want to qualify the resource here. It's me.
I like John's statistics as much as you like Kevin theology.
Yes.
Kevin theology is awesome.
It's all subjective, folks.
I got to write my own book. Go on. I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking that, and I was thinking a lot about this word conventional wisdom. What has conventional wisdom done to us as a society? And conventional wisdom, if we could figure out how to define that, but I would define it as what everyone in the group says you should do. And so conventional wisdom is everybody should go to college. Mm-hmm. Really? And I wonder if that mentality in our culture and our society, and probably the last how many decades, has helped hurt the trade skill industry, because no one thinks of as, no, I got to go to college. College is where, instead of thinking, no, trade skills, actually, there's nothing, like, is it a shame thing? Is it like, I don't know what it would be.
Absolutely,
what would get in somebody's mindset? Why is the trade skills, why is there such a need for them and a demand? What has caused people not to go into trade skills?
It's absolutely conventional wisdom. And the other part of that is the tradition that we have over the generations of every generation, on the whole, on average, does better than the generation before. It's more successful, makes more money, yada, 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 right? So, but like traditionally, thinking about coming, the generation before the baby boomers and on, is that, you always wanted your kids to do better than you. So it started to become that a larger and larger percentage of people were going to college, and now we've hit now I'd say we've passed that saturation point, because as anyone who, is younger than us, recently graduated from college, there ain't a lot of jobs out there for that entry-level position, so they're coming out with $100,000 in student loans, and they're not able to find a job except for a barista at Starbucks.
Right.
And that's a whole other thing. But, that was the drive and the shift, so culturally it was, like you said, the conventional wisdom is you go to college, you get a 4-year degree. That's what the parents were pushing towards and all that. And that's why I think there has been, because, say back, if you were a kid in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and maybe your parent or your dad or whatever was a tradesperson, well, they didn't want you to do the same back-breaking stuff that they did. They wanted something better for you.
Yeah.
So they were actually discouraging you from following in their footsteps. Where when you look at culture in a bigger picture, if you step back a little farther, I mean, for crying out loud, people's last names, we have these traditional last names that are based on what their profession was.
Yeah.
Smith, Miller, those are common last names, but those are also professions. That's what you did for a living. That's how you were known. Yeah. And the father did what the son did, and the son did what the father did, and it went on for generations and generations.
Right.
Well, we hit the point where we stopped that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I think people aren't going to trades, and it's so sorely needed. So
interesting.
This is our sales pitch for the trades.
Well, I was just remembering too, when I was in junior high, so what year was that? 80, early 80s. I remember my junior high offered, they offered some vocational skill classes, including and I think the kids would go off, there'd be a bus and they'd go off campus.
Sure.
They'd have like a mechanics class.
Yeah. Well, and definitely in high school.
How to work on a car.
And definitely in high school they did, yeah.
They don't do any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you had a woodworking class, right?
I did. Woodworking, metal shop.
Yeah.
Loved those.
The teacher had only 3 fingers, but I mean that was right. That was the stereotype, but true more than not.
Yeah.
Well, I had those classes. I don't think woodworking exists as a class.
They still have the metal shop class up at what is now middle school, and
for middle school level students. Because metal shop, it would strike me as it would be a high school thing.
I'm pretty I mean, I imagine that's what they teach in there. It was funny because when my oldest daughter started going, so it's kind of cool because my kids are going to the same middle school and high school that I went to,
right?
And I hadn't stepped foot in those schools in 33 plus years. So it was weird to step into like the middle school, and they had done a lot of updates to the school. So there was a lot of things that were completely
But it was the same building, right?
But yeah, but the cafeteria was the same, the gym was the same. But the metal shop class was back there, and I walked in, dude. It was like stepping back 33 years. Nothing in that room.
Oh yeah,
everything, the tables, everything
smelled the same. Probably, yeah.
It did. Yep. It was kind of awesome.
Yeah.
But I remember, I don't know what they teach with that stuff anymore.
I think
too bad.
Yeah, I think my kid's high school still has. I know it still has like an auto tech class.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more beyond that it has as far as vocational stuff.
Yeah.
But no, it's
cool.
Unfortunately, it's a dying art, and it's a dying art that it's going to bite us in the ass because, again,
it is.
It's going to be $1,000 to put in a toilet.
It is, and it's this is our plug for the trades. But no, I commend you for I guess I recognize the first thing when you're talking about installing this light.
Oh, that's how this all started.
Yeah, this is how this all started. But you had your boys, you involved your boys in that, and I think as we're talking about men and leading our families, I think that's a great trait of a father. And you involve your boys in these things, and it's a form of discipline. It's a form of like helping them learn, so that you can help them.
Yeah,
they're going to go out in the real world at some point.
Yeah,
and I think sometimes we tend not to do a very good job of preparing our kids to go into the real world, let alone cope. Which we could go in a whole deep conversation about. The ideas of kids aren't being taught how to fail. No one gets a trophy. We're seeing this spike in suicide rates I'm going off on a big tangent, but I think there's so many underlying causes for these things. People blame social media with the phones. I could certainly go there, but I think we as parents and as fathers, and certainly mothers, but as fathers, which we're talking about here, is we have a responsibility to lead our children and not be their friends, but be their parents and teach them.
That's so huge. That is so huge. That idea of, and it's funny, I just made this statement the other day to my 14-year-old. We were joking about something. I said, remember, I'm not your friend. I said, I can be your friend when you're 18, but I'm not your friend now. And I was ribbing about something. It wasn't a super serious conversation. But that's a conversation I've continued to have with him over the years. And that's the way my dad was with me. I mean, we were oil and water, man. We were cats and dogs until the day I turned 18. On my 18th birthday, I very specifically remember him pulling me aside and say, you know what? Happy birthday, yada, yada, I love you very much. I want to let you know that your mother and I was the first child in the family, we did the best job we could raising you. We certainly made mistakes along the way, and that's just par for the course. It's the first kid. But you're 18 now. Everything that happens falls on you.
Yeah.
You're an adult. So whatever, any consequences for your actions now fall directly on your shoulders. Your mother and I love you, and we'll always be here to help you, but it's going to fall to you first. So just take that knowledge and going forward. But again, from that point on, we were the best of friends. We'd play basketball leagues together. We'd go out and have a beer together. We hung out. We golfed together. Up until that point, we fought like cats and dogs, man.
Yeah.
But I think that's valid, and I think back to your thing about as men being leaders.
Don't take this the wrong way, Gerard. But you fought like cats and dogs, you and your dad.
Yeah.
Were you kind of a rebellious kid then?
Oh, absolutely.
Because because like he's your father, right?
Yeah.
And there's that respect. And I'm not saying fathers are certainly not always perfect.
No.
But do you see yourself? Do you look back and go, yeah, it was probably a little bit more me, and I was a little more rebellious, or was a combination of things? Like, what caused you guys to fight like cats and dogs?
90% of it was me, just being a dumb teenager, doing crappy in school, not having the focus to, apply myself to school. It was all that. It all revolved around.
Did that
school.
come in your teenage years? The fighting? It wasn't prior to that.
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't.
Puberty
It wasn't until high school that I really started doing bad in school because I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I always had the skill and the ability to do it. I mean, I didn't care, honestly. So it was fighting about that.
Yeah.
And there was some other rebellious stuff around that, like staying out too late or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But mostly it was around school.
Do you think that did your dad, getting to that point of those rebellious years, give you good guidance and discipline, and then at some point you're just like, yeah, whatever, and so you were kind of rebelling against either his authority or just being obedient to him?
I don't remember it being so thoughtful and specific, like I'm rebelling against my parents.
Right.
It was more just, honestly, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care about school. I had no interest in school.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't the idea of mom or dad says do A, so I'm going to do Z, just to be a pain in the ass. It was more just, I didn't.
Yeah.
I knew school was something you did and it was important and you had to get good grades, but I didn't see the purpose in the good grades, and I could have.
Yeah. So it really came down to school for you. It was like that was the biggest thing. Yeah.
90% of our arguments.
Yeah. Got it.
And besides that, like in the summers, when I wasn't in school, there was no tension between my dad and I.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's not like we were always fighting. It was just the 9 months a year that school was going on.
Yeah.
I spent high school grounded. Seriously, from the time I got my first report card to the end of the year, every single year I was grounded.
Yeah.
I never went to a basketball game. I never went to a football game. Never went to a dance until senior year. I changed schools and got into an easier school.
Yeah.
Not that I needed it easier, but it was a bigger school, so I was able to get away with more, essentially. So I could slip through the cracks and get good enough grades to keep my parents off my back. Yeah. But I didn't get a driver's license until I was 17 and a half.
Yeah.
Because you had to have a certain grade level in my house to drive.
Yeah.
So one of the first 3 years I was at a small school, there was 140 some kids in my class. And it was a smart school. I mean, it was college prep, and you had to test and have certain scores to get into it. And I did, and I was certainly able to do the work. I just didn't.
Yeah.
And then when I transferred senior year to a regular, quote-unquote, school, I was able to get away with nonsense that I couldn't get away with at a small school, and got good grades.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
You know, I was, again, kind of bringing this all kind of full circle, but even, you know, I'd like to expound on this too. You know, you look at how you're leading your boys, and I believe, obviously, you know, if we bring it biblically, you know, we are to lead our children in the Lord, but part of that is preparing them and preparing them to, you know, go out into the world. You know, you're leading. You know, I think that's a form of your leadership to your boys, showing them how to, you know, do things around the house and that sort of thing. If there was like one thing you would say about your dad, like how he mentored, led you, like you could look back and say, one thing that my dad really taught me, that prepared me for life. Can you think of something? Sorry to catch you off guard.
No, absolutely. I think the thing that first pops in my head that was strongly instilled by both of my parents was care for others.
Yeah.
My parents were 70s hippies, man. I mean, they were full on hippies. So it was love everyone and care for everyone, and, you know, don't see color in someone else's skin. And, you know, there's a lot of things that play in that for me. I mean, I grew up we moved within the city of Detroit when I was 8. I have an adopted sister who's black. Yeah. So that those experiences and the experiences that were enforced by my parents is that, you know, you don't judge people based on the color of their skin, things like that. Right. So that love and care for others, I think, was probably one of the strongest things instilled in me by my parents.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, for me it was work ethic.
Yeah.
You know, my dad had his own business, and I watched my parents. It was kind of cool for me because being the oldest of 3, you know, my brother and sister are, my sister's 7 years younger than me. My brother's 9 years. So I was 7 before my sister was born. So I got to see at a very young age my parents and my dad and my mom build their own business.
And the struggles that went with it, I assume?
Yeah, convenience store and you know, going from, you know, and there's nothing wrong with it, but just living in an apartment to, you know, see my dad work really, really hard to build an income for the family. And then this year, I remember when we got our first house and then our second house. And my dad has always been very entrepreneurial, but he instilled in all of us, and my brother and sister too, a work ethic. And for him, it was, you know, after school time, I didn't play sports. Mm-hmm. It's fine. I'm good with that. I always tell people, fine, I really don't care about sports. My dad wasn't a sports guy. We just never got into it.
Sure.
But from 11 years on, in the summertime, I worked in his store. And I used to stock the shelves. And so he was teaching me how to earn a paycheck and how to work. Mm-hmm. And he instilled that in all of us kids. And I love him for that. I mean, it was, you know, and that's what he wanted, to make sure that we had a work ethic.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think it goes back to even his own childhood and his father's childhood. My grandfather, his parents, he was the oldest of, I don't know how many, but his parents died very, very young. Mm-hmm. And he basically, his brothers and sisters, and I don't know the number or exact mix, but they were all underage. Mm-hmm. So he was like, I think he was like 18 or 19 when the parents died. He had to take responsibility for his brothers and sisters. You know, you're going back to the Depression era time period, right? So he had to work to take care of his family. And then you look at my dad, who was the youngest of 4 kids, and very independent, never wanted to work for someone else.
So never wanted to work for the man.
Didn't want to work for the man. But that's what he taught. He taught us, that work ethic and the value of money,
right?
The value of work. So,
do you think? Looking at it now as an adult, do you feel like you were acting in the same way that your dad did with what you passed on to your kids? Are you filtering it and not saying your dad did this, but, teaching the value of money, I think, is really, really important, but it could be done 2 ways, right? You could teach the value and the importance of money and saving, things like that, and you can also teach the value of money and, you have to have it all. So, if, for example, your dad taught you, and I'm not saying he did, but if, for example, he taught you have to have it all, and then as an adult you see the fallacy in that, but with your kids you're still teaching the importance of money. It's just refining that lesson.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think there was ever a sense of that you have to have it all. I think for him it was just always about being able to provide and give his kids the things he didn't have. Mm-hmm. But I don't think my dad ever, I'm saying never thought. I never thought, we never had this conversation. I don't think he ever thought I want more, I want more.
Right.
I think he just wanted to build a business with integrity and
something that was stable
and something was stable.
Put food on
the table. And we had a nice house. He put all us through college, and for him that's a huge achievement, and it is. And I'm grateful for that.
So do you take that lesson now and pass it to your girls?
Yes, and it's different, and I have to say I think it's more difficult. I don't have a business, my own business to so. And I'm not saying that I can't find other ways, other means, but he had his own business that I could work in. We are trying to encourage our girls, to understand the value of money. They're completely different people. Mm-hmm. As my brother and sister and we're all very different people.
Sure.
I don't know how to explain it. It's different, and certainly the struggles are real as far as today. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it's definitely a conversation that my wife and I have constantly about trying to teach them the value of money, teach them the value of we didn't have these phones to distract us,
right?
And we just had this conversation with one of our daughters that, you want to do all these things when you're older. You need to start applying yourself towards those things now and less time on this phone. And, my wife said it great, going on Instagram and liking pictures isn't going to get you anywhere.
Ever. Never, ever.
And that's a battle, we have. So, it's interesting because, and I don't want to use this as an excuse, but I feel like we have so much more to distract us now than we did when we were growing up. You and I, when we were growing up in the 80s, to grab our attention away from some of these things. And as parents, I feel like it seems like it's a little bit different of a struggle. Don't you think? Or what do you think?
Yes and no. So, yes and no. I think that the technology today and things like social media, Instagram, Snapchat, really Instagram, I think is one of the worst. Facebook for us old people, because Lord knows the kids aren't using Facebook. I think there's a lot of damage there. There's a lot of comparison that happens, comparison to others, putting on a false front, projecting a life that isn't your own to look cool and to look important and to get likes and get followers, right? So I think that's a really bad part. But I think at the same time, we need to be careful as old people on how we judge technology in general, because it's funny, if you've ever looked at societal reactions to technology going back to prior to the Industrial Revolution, right? The printing press was going to be the death of American society, without a doubt. All these people talked about how bad it was. I mean, the telephone was going to kill conversation, right?
I mean, the bug, there's a whole buggy whip, analogy, right?
Right. Like, so we got to be careful. Like, I mean, there is a lot of good in the technology that we have right now. That we just have to be open to the ways that it's social. Like, I've had conversations as a counselor with parents about kids that they're worried that the kids are addicted to video games. Well, that's because, the parents are maybe our age, John, you and I, and they're thinking of the video games that they remember, playing Atari and playing Pitfall as a kid, and you'd spend 8-10 hours a day doing it sometimes. I mean, I know I did.
Yeah.
Still went out and played with your friends and stuff like that, but I think what a lot of people aren't seeing are...
We've lost historical perspective.
Yeah, but they're also not seeing really, especially with games now, the social aspect of these games. I mean, any of these, massive multiplayer games, even we could have a whole other podcast about like the violent ones like Call of Duty and things where you shoot stuff. But there's such a social aspect to them now that to say that my kid's spending too much time doing this thing and not, because they're not going out and hanging out at the mall like you and I used to when we were kids. Yeah. Well, malls are dead, for one.
Yeah, it's true.
So I think we just have to be careful on how we judge it. I absolutely think that the way some of the social stuff is being used is damaging. I mean, I see it, read articles about it all the time in my profession. It's just that constant comparison is really, really bad for the psyche.
I think I told you this before. We're struggling with our daughter, and forgive me for, I don't even know I should be talking about this, but she badly wants Snapchat.
Yeah.
All her friends have it.
Yep.
We've been struggling with the idea that everything goes away. Now, you just said you think Instagram is... So I'd love to hear your POV on the differences between... Because I think you're okay with Snapchat.
Yeah, right? We use it. Both my 16-year-old and 14-year-old have it. It's definitely a time suck. They spend hours on Snapchat.
Well, that's the other thing I worry about is like giving another time suck.
So that's one component. I think, speaking in generalizations, we, older people, parents, look at it and say, well, everything disappears. So they could be sending, nude photos of themselves to other people. And other people can be sending...
Or people we don't know are connecting with them. And we hear about predatory predators and things.
And that is certainly a concern. Our friend, the retired sheriff, would go on about this for quite some time. But that is certainly a concern. I don't see it like that, at least in my boys, on, a day-to-day basis. It's really a form of... It's really communication for them. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of communicating with friends. And, like I say, my wife and I use it and with our family members, and it's just fun, stupid stuff that 90% of what we're sending. It's cute little videos or pictures of whatever. So I don't think there's as much danger as in Snapchat from the social side, because it's not as I put like in quotes, driven.
Yeah.
Whereas Facebook and now Instagram are all about having followers, how many people like your picture, and presenting. I've told you about Finstagram, having a Finsta account. So Finsta is a fake Instagram account that people make, and it's a fake Instagram account. And usually what the fake Instagram account is, you would only have a very select group of friends know your Finsta, and this is more your real life. You wake up and you look like crap in the morning, and you're eating crap food, and whereas the Instagram account, your primary account, is this glorified version of what your life as an individual is, just to garner likes, just to garner people who follow you, just to, and it's so ego driven and image driven. I mean, for crying out loud, we have Instagram influencers, people who make their living by just doing this, and more power to them. They figure out how to make money out of it, but
that's YouTube. I mean, all the social networks with YouTube does as well.
So for young kids, anything that's so image driven and so driven, and people have to like this, and people have to follow me, and this thing that I put out there didn't get as many likes, as many followers, and maybe it's because I didn't have the right shoes on or the right shirt on, or maybe I looked a little fat that day, and I got to compare myself to these people who have hundreds and thousands and millions of followers, and I got to be more like them.
So that's why you prefer Instagram over Snapchat. I'm sorry, Snapchat over Instagram. By the way, the second half of this show is brought to you by Snapchat. The first part was brought to you by Home Depot.
Yeah, this is Snapchat. We're making money. Yeah, right.
But because you see Instagram, because it stays out there and it's sticky, right?
Yeah.
That it becomes more of a comparison thing, and where Snapchat, you like the fact that it does disappear, because in that way, it's out of sight, out of mind after a while. It's just something, a quick little, hey.
And and Snapchat specifically, you are sending to an audience of your choosing. Where Instagram, you're sending out into the ether, hoping to garner audience, hoping more people follow you, hoping someone will reshare and it'll go viral or whatever. Well, that doesn't happen with Snapchat. Now, certainly with Snapchat, you get followers. Yeah. I mean, stars, celebrities, people like that use Snapchat as much as Instagram, and they have people that follow them, hundreds of thousands of followers. But what I see, again, this is just my little tiny bit of experience, on a day-to-day basis, it's you're sharing with people you know. This is something you're willing to show.
Well, and that's the thing.
And it goes away.
And that's the thing that my wife and I want to have that conversation with our daughter, is that making sure that you are only connected to your closest friends, period. Like, not, because, and again, I'm coming from a very uninformed standpoint. I tried Snapchat for a while, and I don't know why. I just let it I was frustrated by it.
What frustrated you?
You know what? I didn't know how to use it.
Yeah. It's like, that's a real thing,
tweeting.
right?
I don't tweet.
Oh,
I don't get it. I don't understand it. And that's the thing that.
But it's funny because as, not to generalize too much, but as human beings, we're afraid of things that we don't understand.
Right.
So not to say that you have nightmares about Snapchat or Twitter.
But let's talk about this as parents, and this is where we kind of as parents, you're trying to lead your children, and they want something really, really bad, and it's like you're trying to protect them from something, right or wrong, right. But when we don't understand something fully, our easy answer is like, no, you can't have that, because basically it's like, I don't understand it,
right?
So I don't want you to have it,
right?
Because I don't get it, and
that's
probably a frustration for them, right? Our kids, right?
Oh, it's absolutely.
It's like, but yeah.
And I think there's some validity to that, because there are things, with emerging technology, things come out. As a parent, you can't possibly envision all the different ways that this new technology can be used. Like, at a surface glance, oh well, this is just a really cool way to share pictures,
right? And
not seeing what will evolve into this Instagram of having to have followers and having to have likes and putting a fake face forward to the world, so people think you're living a better life than you are, right? We never could have envisioned that. So we have to, with all new technology, as a parent, I think you have to do your best to do the research on what it is, and then almost kind of be a fortune teller to know what it could evolve into. Mm-hmm. Instagram, when it started, was just a photo sharing website.
Yeah. And
it wasn't even necessarily photos of yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah, look, and obviously, And I know fear, but obviously it comes from a good place, right? We want to protect our kids. And here, I'll get deep. I'll get deep now. Because I always want to bring biblical principles into this. But my wife and I were having this conversation yesterday morning on our morning walk, and I think this goes back to your dad telling you at 18, I did the best I could, or we did the best we could. So we've trained you up in principles, and how we feel about our values and all that. We've led you in those, but at some point you just got to let them fly, right? Mm-hmm. And I was saying to my wife, I said I was thinking about probably an aspect of the prodigal son we never really think about, because the focus is usually on the two brothers,
mm-hmm.
But I said we never stop to think about the father, who was obviously representative of God, but I'm pretty certain that he did the best he could raising these two boys.
Yeah.
In a godly way and belief in God and all that. There's only so much he can do. Your kids are going to go out in the world and they're going to do things, because we're all broken, right?
Right.
And they're going to go out. The good news is, we never really find out what happened to the second brother, because he complains about the brother who went out and spent it all, and
and it was welcomed back when the other the older brother
we never find out how things ended up with him, but I think is interesting is where was I going with this? Oh, just that I'm sure the father trained both of his boys up the best he could, and that's all we can do. And then hopefully, if your kids go out and become a prodigal son or a prodigal daughter, that they're gonna come around.
Yeah.
But I think we can't put too much weight on ourselves. Obviously, as parents, we can be crappy parents and that kind of thing. But I believe that we're doing the best we can to lead them in a godly home, and not but give them the freedom to and the grace that they need, and they're going to go out in the world one day, and it's scary. We let it scare because but
I would say it's probably my favorite story in the whole Bible, because there's
I thought it was Noah.
No.
Talk about that in another episode.
There's so much depth there. There's so much intricacy there.
Yeah.
I mean, from how the father reacted, looking at it through the context of the time, how the younger son reacted, how the older son reacted, and who's like the hero, who's the villain, and just even like minute details, like when you look at like theories around psychological theories around family birth order, first child versus second child, it all speaks so well to all that. There's so much intricacy. I mean, there have been books and books and books written about just that story, and I like, some of the stuff that fascinates me is like, imagining like what did happen to the older son after the story, right? Like what, and then what happened to the younger son? The younger son leaves again, or does he? And and you remember
you did a skit on that.
We did a skit on that where the next morning the younger son is gone after the big party and the big welcome back, and the younger son is gone, and the scene ends with the dad hanging a welcome home banner.
Yeah.
And the servant asking why he's putting up the welcome home banner. He's like, hopefully today is the day my son will return.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so much depth there. But, I think that if this technology existed back then, I think Jesus would have an Instagram account. But his would be perfect and not be, it's not like he would have to put on a fake front, right? Because he was perfect, huh? Yeah?
I love it. That's great.
And he probably wouldn't have as many followers as Satan would. Oh, there's some depth there.
Ooh.
Who would have more followers, Jesus or Satan?
Wow.
Yikes.
Well,
I don't
the
think
gate is narrowed.
Yeah, I don't think we want to touch that.
Well, I think this is a good place to end.
Yeah.
All right.
Is
that it for this episode? Until the next one.
I think so.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. See ya.
See ya.